My sister-in-law, Jessica, wants to adopt my daughter because I stole the name she wanted to use. Honestly, she should consider adopting some common sense and urgently. My husband, David, and I found out we were expecting our first baby. Up until that point, everything was normal. There were no crazy people on the horizon. When we finally told both our families that I was pregnant, I can genuinely say everyone was excited. Well, almost everyone. Later that evening, David mentioned that his sister Jessica and her husband Mark had been trying to conceive for about 2 years without success. I felt bad for their situation, but frankly, it wasn't something we could control. We had also been waiting to start our family for about 14 months. Everything seemed fine for a few weeks. We held a gender reveal party at my parents' house, and when we learned we were having a girl, I was moved to tears for a very special reason. My grandmother raised me after my mom passed away when I was 6 years old. She was everything to me. When she died 7 years ago, I made a silent promise to myself. If I ever had a daughter, I would name her Donna. That was my grandmother's name. At the party, Jessica pulled me aside in the kitchen and asked what names we were considering. I saw no reason to hide it, so I told her we loved the name Donna. Her face changed, she didn't say anything, and she just walked away. I thought maybe she didn't like the name or something, but I didn't think it was a big deal. The next night, around 11 p.m., I received a very long message from her explaining why I couldn't use that name. She claimed Donna was her name, and that she had been planning to use it for her future daughter since she was a teenager. She went on to say it would be incredibly hurtful if we used it, and she basically asked us, though it sounded more like a demand, to choose another name because that one was taken. It was a pretty hard message to read. I mean, how can a name be taken? In the 5 years I had been part of their family, first as David's girlfriend and then as his wife, she had never once mentioned that name. Not at other family baby showers, not in casual conversations about future children, nothing. I talked to David the next morning. He told me he had never heard her mention Donna as a name she wanted to use either. We decided to stick with the name because it was special to me. It wasn't just a random name picked from a baby book or a fleeting whim. It was the name of my grandmother, a real person who existed and raised me. It carries deep meaning and a huge emotional weight for me. I hope someday to sit down with my daughter and explain why she has that name, what my grandmother meant to me, and all those things. I sent Jessica a polite message explaining why we had chosen the name Donna and why we intended to keep it. She didn't take it too well, though I'm being mild in saying that. She called me at 6 a.m. to tell me what kind of person I was, which ultimately boiled down to me always trying to steal her attention. She ranted on with a few more crazy things, but it all summed up to her believing I had only gotten pregnant to one-up her and rub her infertility issues in her face. She was screaming at 6 a.m. and I hadn't even had my coffee yet. I hung up in the middle of her shouting. It woke David, so I can only imagine what it was like in her house with Mark. A few days later, I started receiving messages from Jessica's mother, my mother-in-law. Jessica had been yelling at her too, so for the sake of her own peace of mind, she wanted me to give in and consider her daughter's feelings. She suggested we might use Donatella, since for her, it was practically the same thing. But my grandmother wasn't named after a ninja turtle. Her name was Donna. And while I think Donatella is a pretty name, it wouldn't fulfill its purpose of commemorating or remembering my grandmother. I asked if anyone in their family was named Donna, or if anyone important in Jessica's life had that name, but even my mother-in-law clarified that Jessica simply wanted that name. As she kept pressing, essentially because she wanted to regain her peace of mind, I took screenshots of absolutely all the messages and sent them to David. He immediately called his mother and told her to stay out of it. I found out that Jessica had been telling people she had confessed that name much earlier and that I was using it to hurt her. I even have a locket from my grandmother with her name on it that I've worn, and some people know about it. However, people who had never seen it or known my grandmother quickly sided with Jessica. Furthermore, because she had fertility problems, they saw my actions as doubly malicious. I don't understand how my grandmother's name, who must be cursing in Italian from wherever she is because she also had a strong side, has anything to do with this situation. Jessica's husband, Mark, messaged David a week later, asking if we could all meet and talk it out like adults. I asked David what the tone of this meeting would be, based on his conversation with his brother-in-law. I wanted to know if it was a meeting for everyone to calm down, or if it would be another lecture about why I should choose a different name. We had already made a decision, and I wasn't going to sit through an intervention about my own daughter's name. Finally, I went into labor very early one morning. David drove me to the hospital and strategically notified the people we wanted to know. Our daughter Donna was born that afternoon. We didn't immediately post anything on social media, only that approved group of people knew. Even so, the very next day, Jessica showed up at the hospital. The maternity ward nurses wouldn't let her into my room because she wasn't on our approved visitor list. According to the nurse who came to tell us, Jessica created a huge scene in the hallway, yelling at them to let her in because she was the baby's aunt. We didn't hear any of it ourselves, as we were further away, but hospital security eventually had to escort her out. When we got home with Donna, there was a package at our door. Inside was a baby gift basket with a card. The card read, "For the baby who should have been mine, I hope you're happy with yourself." Everything was pink, and several items had the name Donna embroidered on them. Blankets, a little outfit, and a bib. A few days later, Jessica started texting David nonstop. She said she wanted to meet her niece and was willing to turn a new page, using air quotes here, because that wasn't what she wanted to do regarding the name, if we would let her be part of Donna's life. David told her she needed to apologize for her behavior and get her head straight before we would even consider it. Then came the message that completely proved she was losing it. Up until now, this is just a small taste of the extreme. I understand not being able to get pregnant, but everything she was doing wasn't normal, and what came next wasn't either. She messaged me from a new number because I had muted her old one and hadn't been reading her messages for a long time. She said she had been thinking about everything and had come up with a solution that would make everyone happy. Since I had stolen the name and her dream of having a daughter named Donna, it would only be fair to let her and Mark adopt our baby. She suggested I hand over my newborn daughter to compensate for using the name. This was no longer a simple problem. She was delusional. David called Mark right then and told him he needed to get real help for Jessica, or we would have to take legal action to protect ourselves. At least this time, Mark apologized profusely. He explained that Jessica was having a terrible time with not being able to get pregnant, but admitted that this was completely out of line. Only now is it out of line? Seriously? A few days later, she tried to add me on Instagram from a new account. The username was something like Mommy, something or other. After that, and seeing that her husband couldn't control her, we decided to file a harassment report. Perhaps it sounds extreme, but the things she was suggesting seemed straight out of a horror movie. When the police went to her house to give her a warning about the harassment, she told them I was making everything up because I was mentally unstable due to postpartum hormones. The police still had all the evidence, but the officer came back to follow up with us. They told us she seemed emotionally distressed, but that they had documented the entire interaction and our complaint. A few days later, someone sent me screenshots of a private Facebook group she had created. It was called something like Supporting Infertility Warriors, or similar. There, she had posted about me, telling a completely distorted version, saying that I had used my pregnancy as a weapon against her and had deliberately stolen her daughter's name to hurt her. There were about 40 people in the group. Most of the comments actually told her she needed to talk to a professional because her reaction wasn't normal. We had our lawyer draft and sent her a cease and desist letter. My in-laws, for the first time, supported our decision after seeing the Facebook posts. Luckily, our lawyer felt it was enough for a restraining order. A judge, seeing that a baby was involved and for the baby's safety, would be willing to sign one, given the load of evidence against my sister-in-law. Meanwhile, both David and my in-laws were trying to get Mark to find professional help for Jessica, something I was also looking into. Nothing she was doing was normal, but it could improve with the right help. However, she refused because she saw nothing wrong with her line of thinking. The restraining order hearing was exactly what you would expect, not in the sense of being a solemn legal proceeding, but in the sense of matching the escalating craziness of the recent past. My sister-in-law tortured the judge for almost 15 minutes, telling him why she deserved the name Donna and not me. At no point was there any proof, or even a mention, that she had chosen the name before. Not that it mattered. There's no law preventing you from naming your baby with a name someone else chose. The judge stopped her at one point and said he didn't want to hear any more. He granted the restraining order. David completely cut her out of his life. He told his parents that even if she sought help, even if she somehow got better, she would never have access to Donna. Strangely enough, they agreed. I'm mainly referring to my mother-in-law, who initially agreed about the name just to protect her own peace of mind. With the restraining order in place, she couldn't come near us, but even with legal protection, I knew this probably wasn't over. People who become so obsessed don't just stop because a judge tells them to. I started being more careful with our routines. We installed security cameras around the house. I was a bit paranoid, but I couldn't take any chances. One night, Mark called David. He said Jessica was acting increasingly unstable, and he was worried. This included compulsively taking pregnancy tests, even when they weren't having intercourse, and being devastated every time they came back negative. Mark had tried to get her help, even forcing her to see a professional, but had been unsuccessful. Jessica had mentioned something about finding someone outside to help them have a baby. Mark tried to find out what she meant, but couldn't get a clear answer. He wanted David to talk to her, but David had tried already, and nothing good came of it. He also didn't want to open the door to that kind of drama again for our family, especially since the harassment towards me had at least stopped. He didn't want to trigger another episode by contacting her. Finally, one day, Mark came home and couldn't find her. He called my in-laws and David to ask if we had seen her, and also to warn us, but no one had been in contact. She was found shortly after, offering money to girls on the street to have a baby with Mark and then give it to her. The police found her after one of these women called emergency services. She is now under psychiatric observation to evaluate her condition. We don't know what to expect from this, but at least she is being monitored by professionals. Edit. Her parents and Mark tried to reason with her, which was clearly impossible. They also looked for ways to have her evaluated against her will. For a while now, and even more so with the birth of my daughter, it was clear she wouldn't seek help on her own. She was in denial about it. David didn't want to get involved because both he and I, and especially our daughter, are the focus of her triggers. It was a terrible idea for us to try and talk to Jessica. We could have escalated this problem even further. Update 1. She was discharged from the facility after 6 days. She was diagnosed with some kind of delusional disorder with fixation tendencies and depression related to infertility. She was prescribed medication and told she needed outpatient therapy. Her parents are currently taking care of her because Mark has filed for divorce. But before you call him a bad husband for abandoning her at her lowest point, continue reading. My in-laws have taken her in to live with them and are providing her with the help she needs. During her involuntary hospitalization, she wrote Mark a letter full of delusions, although it wasn't the main reason for his divorce filing. The letter mentioned that he hadn't done enough to get her pregnant, that he should have tried some of her suggestions, more on that in a moment, and the necessary dose of blame on me. She believed I was performing some kind of ritual on her so she couldn't get pregnant. Besides not believing in such things, I wouldn't even know how to begin a ritual. I've never witnessed one. I think the letter contained more, but Mark only told us that part and gave us his opinion that she was delusional. The suggestions Jessica was talking about were ideas to increase the probability of pregnancy, but they weren't about eating healthy or exercising, things a doctor might recommend. Instead, they involved having intercourse in strange places or doing it in a certain orientation like north or south according to the moon. She believed Mark didn't do enough because he didn't obsessively follow all of these. He says he tried some things just to reduce her anxiety, but there were some suggestions he preferred not to try or share with David. Regarding the real reason he filed for divorce, Mark found that Jessica was self-medicating at home, taking everything from fertility-boosting products to depression medication. She got these through friends, but without any professional consultation. She took them because she thought they would do her good. One of these medications is what caused her psychotic break, or I think that was the term he used. I might be mistaken. There was also a list of potential female friends and colleagues of Mark's with whom he could mate. Yes, it had a title that read Potential Mating Partners, and columns with different attributes like fertility, hereditary traits, etc. This was dated even before she got the medication that caused the adverse effect. Now, with the correct medication, she is a little better. David's parents keep in regular contact with us. I won't lie and say she takes her medication regularly, but her parents are making the effort. At least they live far away, and she doesn't have access to car keys. Her father has a small safe box and keeps them there once he's home. I hope with all this, everything ends, and we can all have some peace. I also wish Jessica would stick to her treatment for everyone's sake, especially her own. Edit. The friends who gave her this medication didn't receive any punishment for it, only warnings. Update 2. I wish I didn't have to write another update, but some things happened, and this is my place to tell them. Also, the police are involved, but they don't respond with emojis, but with paperwork and arrests. We received a doorbell alert at our house, and David checked the camera from his phone. Jessica was at our front door, looking at the camera, and that triggered an alert. She had driven an unknown number of hours in the middle of the night. We called the police immediately. We didn't go downstairs or open the door, we just kept watching until the police arrived. They arrived in less than 20 minutes and arrested her right there on the porch for violating the restraining order. It turned out she had used one of her friend's cars, and she thinks we are treating her unfairly. It doesn't matter how she thinks we treat her. What's important is to recognize that someone like her is a danger. According to this friend, she lent Jessica her car that night because Jessica just wanted to drive around. If she had known Jessica would end up at our door so late, she wouldn't have lent it to her. There was a new hearing with the same judge who issued the restraining order. This time, he sentenced her to 90 days in jail with credit for time served. Her lawyer tried to argue that she needed containment, not jail time, that she needed a place where she would be supervised and could take her medication. The judge sent her to a jail where they could manage that, but he also asked if she had been taking her medication this whole time, and her parents testified that she had not. The other alternative presented by her lawyer was for her to serve her sentence in a psychiatric facility, but the judge dismissed it after a professional's evaluation, which argued that while she was taking medication, it wasn't strong enough or didn't require 24-hour supervision. In fact, in his opinion, she was completely aware of what she was doing. He stated that tricking her friend and driving to our house showed her as a functional person. Jessica claimed she wasn't aware she drove there and was confused when she arrived at our door. She was thinking of asking us for help to return to her parents, but was hesitant because of the restraining order. The camera footage shows her hesitating to ring the doorbell or turn back. But her friend argued that when Jessica asked for the car, she seemed fine. We can't trust the friend either, because giving her car away when she noticed something strange wasn't the best idea. The divorce was finalized while Jessica was in jail. Her parents don't know what to do with her because they can't force her to take medication, nor can they institutionalize her against her will. She's due out in a few weeks, and I think they're very nervous about how to handle her. We are too, but not about how to handle her, rather about how things might escalate. Edit. Thank you for your concern. We have cameras as our main security measure and can call the police. Moving isn't realistic because even if we went that route, we can't just move before she gets out of jail. Selling the house would take a few months if we're lucky, and we can't simply buy another house and wait calmly for ours to sell. We don't have that kind of money. The same goes for renting. We have a mortgage to pay, we're not swimming in money. Extra measures include me not being alone with my baby when David isn't home. We also have our neighbors watching the house or looking out for anyone strange passing by. It doesn't make much sense now, but we messaged them a photo of Jessica so they would recognize her. Some measures are extreme because she isn't out yet. But we also don't trust her friends, especially the one who lent her the car. I've always been one to think it's better to be safe than sorry, and that's what we're doing here. I promise to update you again, even if it's just to say that everything is fine. Update 3. We are doing well, although she has been released from jail with a mission to torment her ex-husband. At some point I mentioned the letter she sent him, blaming him for not trying hard enough. It seems all her obsession and harassment has turned towards him recently. She wrote letters inside jail but didn't send them until she got out. I believe they read what you send and receive in there, so they wouldn't have reached him. That's why she saved them and sent almost all of them together. Except instead of sending them all at once, she distributed them to different nearby post offices so they would arrive on different days. Some did arrive consecutively, and others arrived the next day or 2 days later, all at his parents' house, which is where he coincidentally was living after leaving the place he shared with Jessica. I don't think she knew that. The letters aren't of much value, and I don't recall anything specific David told me about them. It's just her writing a personal diary of hate towards her ex-husband. He is to blame for everything. She hasn't done anything wrong. She doesn't deserve any of this. After that, her ex moved out of the house and didn't receive any more letters. They stopped before he moved, but we learned from one of Jessica's friends what she had done and how she had sent them. We held our breath for a while, hoping that maybe something would come to us, that she would show up at our house, or that we would also receive some of these letters. However, the only thing worth mentioning during this time were the letters to her ex, and that was it. There wasn't even any more harassment towards her ex. I believe the last letter, or at least when he told us about it, was 8 months ago. When she was released, she didn't go to her parents' house, she went to a friend's place. It's not the friend who lent her the car, but another one, completely different. According to David, she's a trustworthy woman. Don't think anything strange. David just thinks she was the most decent one in Jessica's group. She must be the reason Jessica has calmed down now, that she's getting help or whatever, and that the intensity of her actions has decreased a bit. Anything that helps her is welcome. I wish she had listened to Mark or her parents when they suggested seeking help. At least late is better than never. Edit. Since the last letter, now that I'm giving a small update, almost a year and a half has passed, probably a little less. We still have no direct news from Jessica. Her parents are in contact with the friend, but we keep our distance for obvious reasons. She's doing well, according to what the friend tells them, and her parents are willing to get closer to her. Perhaps they will, and I can give an update if that's what you'd like. For our part, it will be very difficult to rebuild that bond, and we don't want to risk it with Donna involved, but we are glad she is healing. Update 4. A long time ago, I mentioned that my in-laws might get closer to Jessica. They did, and the news is that she is healing. Well, that happened a while ago, and you've been asking me for an update. They have had contact, and it has been good. She has told them about her new job, how she is seeking healing, and that she is taking her medication. She told her parents that she has made many bad decisions and has apologized to them. She hasn't mentioned us, and no one has tried to force a reunion between us. David and I both feel that we don't want her near our daughter. We don't know what her reaction might be, and we don't want any drama right now. We are glad she is doing better. Truly. Believe me, David, even though he doesn't want her near our daughter, loves his sister and wants the best for her. Edit. The meetings with my in-laws haven't been few. They are reconnecting. She has asked about David, but not about me or Donna. We don't know if it's out of shame because she doesn't want to acknowledge us, or because she doesn't think it's the right time. Nor are her questions about David about seeing him or establishing communication. It's just to know if he's well and that kind of thing.